Thank you very much, Tad, for being a part of our gallery talk. It's unfortunate that we were not able to have an opening reception because of the COVID and CDC procedures, but we really encourage everyone to come down to see this exciting show. I found it extremely interesting, and during the past several days, I can't stop watching that video over and over again because it's looped. But I don't know. I just find I think I'm going to see something different every time I look at it, and the music is just like kind of haunting. So it kind of plays in the background. So Pipes of Perception is your show. We also wanted to just mention really quickly also that there are two other exhibitions going on. A retrospect of Einen Neergaard Namek, the old and the new, that's in the Corcoran. And also addition to Tad Sare's show, we also have featuring the artwork of Caitlin Gill in the Ventures Gallery called Micro and Macro. Micro Macro. It's also another very interesting exhibition. But Tad, I really want to learn more about what it is that we are experiencing when we walk into the Tubbs Gallery.
Well, thanks for having me. And so Sarah and Nick, thank you so much for putting this together and allowing me to show. I'm really excited about this. So Pipes of Perception is a art installation which incorporates both my drawings and an animated video, which Nick is speaking about right now. And I have a little video I'd like to show you right now. There's a little bit of music underneath, so I won't be able to talk over it, but we can talk after it. But it's my install day. My family helped me, so Aki and Anzu were able to help me put everything up on the wall, so you'll get to see them in action here, and you'll get to see the space. And so that's the nice thing about this Zoom meeting is you get to be in the gallery, even though you get to sit on your own couch right now. So let me share with you. Oh, one more time, I forgot to hit the share sound button, which is really important. And yeah, so this is just about a minute and a half. Play this. So you can see there's the installation part of the show. So you get to see what it kind of looks like in the space. And that was Aki on the piano and myself on the xylophone. And Anzu was dancing, as you can see there. So, so it was a real family event, the installation. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you the entire video that's projected up on the wall. So what you saw with the drawings is I was able to draw everything by hand and draw everything with graphite and paper, pencil and paper. And then I work magic in the computer in order to sort of composite things together and then simulate camera movements, and I animate back on top of my drawings of the pipe. So I'd like to play it for you now. I will say that the sound might be jarring at some moments, so you might have your finger ready for the...
Don't do that.
Okay, say hi and then you got to go back.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay, you ready?
Mhm.
I think you were going upstairs, right? Okay, here we go. I'm going to play the video for you now. Now, that's the video that Nick was talking about that constantly loops. And I feel sorry for the gallery sitter who has to hear that sound. But and if you know, and I'm sure a lot of you are, what was that? And that's sort of what I like about it, is that it's a collage, and I consider it a collage of lots of things that I sort of like that make up my sort of personality. So if you were giggling, I think it's okay. If you were kind of wondering what was going on, I think it's also okay, because I think I like to just throw a lot of visual information together. And so if you'd allow me just a little bit of time, I'd like to talk at you just a little bit longer and share a few more visuals, maybe to expand this this idea of collaging and my personality and maybe my references coming through. And then I can maybe talk specifically about the work itself. So I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I have a few images I'd like to share with you. All right, everyone can see the photo on screen there. Okay, great. So I have a few things written down just because I wanted to make sure I get everything right, but I'd like to present to you some information, if you will, about sort of my references and where I'm coming from. And I hope that by the end of it, I will have sort of made connections between what you're looking at and the artwork itself, and maybe my history of artwork. So I have to move Zoom boxes around for just a second. Okay. So I'm going to start this one. I'm going to start everything with each picture with a date. Okay. August 1st, 1961. My father, age 17, from Saginaw, Michigan, as part of a student exchange program, takes a tour bus from West Berlin to East Berlin. Photography is not permitted while en route through the border inspection. While stopped at a checkpoint, he surreptitiously snaps a photograph under his arm, looking out through the bus windows at the goings-ons of the Border Patrol. This photograph, which you're looking at right now, has been part of our family lore for years, thinking that our father was this spy. And I didn't find this photograph until 2013, when I was looking specifically for it, realized that they were actually in our attic as slides, because he had done a wonderful slide presentation as a teenager in Saginaw, Michigan, sharing his trip with school groups, with the Rotary Club, groups like that. So he was kind of like the superstar after this trip. He had these wonderful slides. But what I love about this is that the story behind it is what I sort of fantasized about as a child. The idea that you can take this sort of covert action to get this information. And that sort of opened up a lot of things for me, because that's actually the type of movies that I like as well. I'm a big espionage, thriller, intrigue, but literature and movies sort of guy. And so I've been collecting ideas and stuff throughout all my, well, I'm 40 years old now, so for a long time, I think it was a long time. But here, this photograph is sort of like, it sort of just represents everything about me, and including the photograph itself. It's an imperfect composition. Things are very strange. There's an immediacy to the image. Things are off, right? There's not like right angles, or I should say the angle feels off. You get weird cropping with the border patrol here. If you look closely at the photograph, you also see the reflection of the bus. So my father's reflection is actually in the slide as well in an interesting way. I just love the visual information that's presented here, the story that it presents. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going here. Oh, let me activate this, go down. Okay. October 20th, 1967, frame 352 of a grainy film lasting only 59.5 seconds allegedly depicts a Sasquatch walking through a forest in Northern California. The film, known as the Patterson-Gimlin film, would long be discredited as a hoax and not a definitive proof of the existence of Bigfoots and the missing link between apes and mankind. This is also big for me. The idea of conspiracy, hoax is huge in my work, because I feel like there is, and in this case, it's visual information. The proof that Bigfoot exists is in this imperfect medium, this old film, which only snaps 18 frames or 18 photographs, little photographs per second. So it's already imperfect, and it doesn't necessarily speak truth because of the medium itself. It's this ephemeral medium, and it's all obviously changed over time, just like my father's slide. The color fades, so things that were represented as truth when it was it was taken at the time it was made, now years later becomes sort of this sort of withered document. And I love that idea that the visual information now can be imperfect and start this bigger story, especially about things like a conspiracy, a hoax, that sort of idea. And that's what Bigfoot for me represents for me. And it's okay to laugh at these things too. I mean, they're ridiculous, but I love them. November 7th, 1969, Life magazine publishes an interview with Paul McCartney that quashes the Paul is dead myth, alleging that the English musician died on the 9th of November, 1966 in a car crash and was replaced with a doppelganger named Billy Shears. The conspiracy theory gained traction in late 1967 on American college radio programs that claimed the performing group The Beatles had left fans secret messages and song lyrics propagating the urban legend. I also am obsessed with this, a big conspiracy theory, especially about a huge pop icon, which I will also share more with you. Michael Jackson's coming down the line, so get ready for that. But these ideas of again, conspiracy, a group mentality that builds up ideas over time that seem ridiculous are wonderful. And then the idea that you can look back at other documents like the songs of the Beatles or the album covers and find clues about things, so that there's some sort of evidence for these conspiracies is really interesting to me, because I'm coming to that. This is what I would try to do visually, and that's sort of what my video is about, and the videos that I make are about, is sort of like providing evidence for a bigger story. June 17th, 1987, the London Hospital Medical College rejects Michael Jackson's second bid of $1 million for the remains of John Merrick, the Elephant Man. Interest in the skeleton had increased in the early 1980s after the release of the Elephant Man film, directed by David Lynch. The director, Jim Blashfield, would recreate this idea of the Elephant Man, the purchase of the Elephant Man bones, and other tabloid rumors as unique collage visuals in the 1987 music video "Leave Me Alone" by Michael Jackson, using stop motion techniques to cut, manipulate, and refilm live action video of Michael Jackson's performance. So this video had a huge impact on me. I was already a fan of animation. I'm growing up in the 1980s when the Disney Channel is on, and they don't have a lot of content. So what do? They play old cartoons. I grew up watching old cartoons and really interested in the hand-drawn element, the fact that people actually made these things. And it just continues with other big ideas like, well, MTV also had wonderful music videos in the 1980s where I think people were really inventive with how they get things across visually. And so animation for all of my life has really interested me as an art form. And then also, of course, because how ridiculous it is that Michael Jackson would purchase the Elephant Man's skeleton. January 20th, 1991, the airing of the primetime movie Uncle Buck is interrupted to show footage of nighttime missile attacks by US and coalition forces on the Iraqi military from the Persian Gulf during the first day of Operation Desert Storm. This was the first time I realized that there was a larger world. My movie I was watching was interrupted. So this wasn't just the normal news that I got to see that I could dismiss that my parents were watching that I didn't necessarily want to watch. In fact, this is me having to watch. Operation Desert Storm was brought to my TV screen. And this is the image that I got to see, or images like it, sort of the nighttime filter that night vision goggles or lenses. So everything has this green hue to it, and it just lights up the sky, these surface to air missiles. It sort of blew my mind at that point. And at this time, I'm sort of 10 years old. It was a big deal for me, as I'm sure it was at certain points in your life as well, when the TV brings you information and you finally make connections and you connect the dots to that, the fact that there's a larger world out there. For me, this was a really defining moment. So the medium, the television medium, moving images now, I realize could have incredible power. And the thing is that they're sequential. They're constantly moving. They're constantly changing. So the story starts differently and it ends differently. And that's okay. It's different from walking up to one painting and seeing the whole thing at once, beginning, middle, and end. In fact, in the moving images, you have to wait till the end to sort of process everything. So you get all the information. I think that's really attractive to me. One more thing I just want to show you. I hope I'm not rambling. I hope it sounds interesting. One more, and that is this one. So March 14th, 1995, stuntman Wayne Michaels performs the world's tallest bungee jump at 720 feet, falling gracefully from the pinnacle of Switzerland's Contredam, the top of the Contredam. The footage would be used as the opening sequence of GoldenEye, the reboot of the James Bond franchise starring Pierce Brosnan. The record didn't last very long. It was replaced and beaten in 2006. But this also is a huge moment for me and others like it. My family, and I have family here who can definitely agree to, James Bond was a big part of our gatherings, our family gatherings. At certain points, we loved watching James Bond films. So here it is again. Now you have espionage that's entered into mainstream. And there are certain tropes and devices in this form that become comical, that become standards of sort of this espionage intrigue genre, and I love it. So everything James Bond, I'm all about. And the funny thing, well, not the funny thing, it is funny as well. I mean, so you have these sort of bigger ideas about world leaders and military aggression and conspiracy, all wrapped up into these stories. And there's a lot of humor to it as well. You're supposed to laugh and giggle at and want the hero to win. And that's also really attractive to me as well. So as I'm telling you all of this, I'm trying to give you all of my pieces of the collage so that we can now put them all together. And that's what sort of comes out in some of my films and work. Oop. Give me just a second. I'm going to rearrange a page here. I wanted to share with you just a snippet from another film that I did, and I think things will start to make sense, and you'll see some of these references in there. You'll see a little bit of James Bond, you'll see shadowy figures, you know, and it's supposed to be kind of funny. So this one, this is from an excerpt from a video called Briefcase Encounters, like brief encounters, briefcase encounters. So here's a bunch of briefcases that are holding top, you know, secret, the state secrets. So I just want to play this for you, and I think you'll get a better idea of who I am as this artist / animator. So that's more of my work. And I think you probably see a connection between that video, which is about 2 years old now, and the new work too. So visually, I think they're very similar, and obviously the same sort of content as well. But just to sort of try to wrap up my idea that I was trying to maybe get across by sharing with you some of those funny photographs and dates and ideas, is that I try to make it a point to say things out loud and to say certain words. So if I go back and even just list some things, I think it makes more sense. You start to see a list of ideas and references in both things. So things that I was talking about from those images, things like lore, proof, myth, conspiracy, moving images, secret, doppelganger. You know, I'm trying to like share words that have lots of connotations, lots of associations with this sort of intrigue, this bigger umbrella of like intrigue. And also my references, Sasquatch, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, David Lynch. You know, I hope you see references to those people. I said Uncle Buck, but you probably know I'm born in 1980. I'm a child of the 80s. 80 movies are huge for me. There's Goonies references in my Pipes of Perception video. I don't know if some of you might be familiar with that, but so these things that make up me, I try to put into my films. And I think that they, through repetition, as Nick said, watching things on loop, sometimes it makes things a little bit more absurd or funny. Hopefully new things come out. You can make your own associations, and you sort of you add to a narrative as a viewer. And I think you do that with a lot of artwork. You can appreciate the artwork, but you're also adding to the narrative. You're trying to understand what the artist is getting, is depicting, is trying to communicate. And I think that's what I'm trying to do just by collaging. So I'm collaging my references and it comes out in this sort of form. So I can pause here and just ask if there's any questions, if I need to address anything that I'm not talking about. But I do have a little bit more I can show you about the newer work and maybe how technically I sort of accomplish certain things. And I'm going to look at your chat now. Let's see. Which is the more time-consuming part of your process, the hand drawings or the computer work? Hand drawn is the time-consuming part. The computer work is usually just putting things together, trying to time out things, and sound is part of that computer work. But really, the drawings took a long time. You see, there are 23 pipe drawings with let's see, background. I'm trying to think. I think there's 29 different background drawings or photographs. I'll get to that in a second too. I can show you the background is slightly different. So it's really time consuming just to draw all these things. And then of course I'm animating by hand, but I am also cheating too because I'm using a computer to draw into the program. So the hand drawn aspect is the big thing for me. And that's really important to me too, because I teach animation at a college where I think a lot of the stress is on making things move. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. But, and I have very young students, so the freshmen and sophomores, but I try to instill in them a sense that you're artists first and you should be able to draw. You should be able to draw. This is the hand, pencil, paper. That's the easiest thing to communicate. And you got to be really good at this if you want to be in an actual animator. But yeah. So I think this for me is really important. Is Kentridge important reference? So thanks, Rachel. Rachel's a colleague at the college. William Kentridge is a South African contemporary artist, also doing things that are very similar. He animates charcoal on paper. Well, and he does a lot of other things too, stop motion techniques. He's a big influence too. I did get to see a retrospective of him in Chicago in 2008. And I got to sit behind him in 2009 in Philadelphia at a talk that he gave. And I asked him questions about, what's the game? Cricket. I asked him questions about the game cricket. So that was pretty cool. I got to like rub shoulders with him very quickly. And, but he's definitely a guy that I've known for a long time, and his aesthetic, so black and white, is definitely what I do. I think he uses black and white because I think for him it has this connotations of memory, and maybe mine is a little bit different. I use black and white because I draw on paper. And that's the easiest way for me to just make everything black and white because my medium is already black and white. So that's just what I do. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and so Rachel, I think I answered that, and then the digital and the hand drawn. I hope I addressed that too. Right. If you're okay with this, I'd like to show you just a little bit more in detail how I sort of developed technically the pipes themselves, if that's all right. Let me do that. It's just a few images I'd like to share. And again, everyone's able to see the image. Okay, thank you. This is actually the first pipe that happens after the drain scene. And so the idea just came from wanting to hide information. So if I throw stuff down a drain, you get to see it go down the drain, then I get to see the pipes, and I sort of simulate a camera movement across all these interconnected pipes. I'm hiding this information, you know, that you're throwing these like movie references and silly things like alligators or crocodiles with lasers on their head down the drain. Then you get to see them sort of through these pipes, and of course there's wackiness that ensues outside of the pipes as well. And so that's the idea. So I'm starting with these pencil drawings, things that look like this. And so this is what I had. This is what I envisioned. And I know it's a tiny detail right now, but you can kind of see in the far top left, it's the same pipe that we started with. And you get to see just move all the way up and around and down and around. And there's lots of sort of movie references that reference this type of movement going through pipes to show like movement of one thing to another. And by the way, you see it in the movie Goonies. So that's another reference that I'm trying to bring up from my own childhood. So it looks like this. I'm able to then cut out the background of my white paper. I superimpose it then onto these photo transfers that I did. So I'm taking photos, I'm using photo transfer methods in order to put black and white images on paper, and then I go back in and draw and paint on top of them. I'm really just drawing. I say paint, sometimes I might use a brush and some alcohol to spread graphite on the paper. But what you're looking at is just a collage of different photographs put together. I'm scratching things out, erasing things, drawing things on top so that they feel like a seamless transition from one sort of place to another. But and this is what it looks like. This is the entire wall again. If all the pipes were on top, this is the sort of the serpentine sort of composition that I had to create with my photo transfers. And then I know it's really tiny, but I just wanted to show you everything. So you have to kind of squeeze, but now you get to see this. This is the video. So the video is all these pipes, all these drawings, the photo references as well. And then I put it, of course, into a computer, and I'm able to move things around in a highly cropped way to make it look like there's a camera moving around. Planning is huge in this, and as it is in sort of any animation. So it took me quite a while to figure out a plan for all of this and draw all of these things out. So I'm also thinking with this in mind, I know that I'm going to have to split up my drawings in order to fit them on the wall. If I had them go all the way through, it would be 26 feet long, but the space that I was going to show in, I couldn't show 26 feet of drawing all together. So I had to split it up. So I have a wall 1 and a wall 2. So I'm trying to split up the display. And that's exactly what you saw in the beginning. During the install video, you got to see me install my drawings and then the projections in the middle. And do I have any more? Yeah, that's it. I'm going to go back to chat for just a second. Some of you are asking questions. Do you set up a value scale beforehand when working in black and white? Oh, this is Danielle. This is my animation student, Daniela. You're asking such smart questions. Why was it more go with Danielle? I'm constantly playing with value. And you know what the nice thing is that I'm drawing with a range of pencils that give me different gradations of black and white. But of course, you know that we can manipulate things on the computer later on. So that also helps too. So I'm trying to make the most out of everything. Of course, value is really important, especially if it's just all black and white, right? Right. Yeah. And Rachel's asking, do I show my drawings with my animations? Yes, that is a thing I do because I want to sell the drawings. The animations, no one necessarily buys animation, and I want to share it with lots of people anyways. So it's really just the drawings that I try to share. You know what? I should have had it, but my family a long time ago gave me an animation cell, a production cell from a Walt Disney short, and it's this prize thing that I have. Actually, it's so important to me that it's in storage, wrapped, so that I never see it. And if I showed it to you, That also gave me the idea, though, that this is the hand-drawn element that goes under the camera, right? And that is really important to me because someone had to draw that. And actually, as I get older and older and start to like learn more about the animators, now I know people by name, animators by name, and which sections of films that they sort of animated, or characters, scenes, that sort of thing. So it becomes really important to me that someone is behind that. So that's what I try to do, as I try to put my drawings, which are part of the production, on display, and hopefully sell those as a working artist. Aki, who happens to be my wife, is asking me a question too. There are many references, nods to espionage films and other historical events. Do you have interest in collaging current topics, events from today's world? I do, but yet I haven't. And you know what? I think because things that I am referencing are quite a distance away from me in terms of time. And so over time, I think things might lose their some of their power as far as like hot issues. So I'm not trying to be controversial and to put out there this idea of here's a political viewpoint or whatever that is, right? Instead, I think I try to work instead with things that maybe, because we can see it through a contemporary lens, the history of it might seem a bit extreme or silly. For instance, I mean, I started this whole thing by me showing you my father's photograph of this checkpoint as he's going from west to east Berlin. He's there on August 1st. August 12th of 1961 is when the construction of the Berlin Wall was started, the physical construction, right? And it would last for over 30 years. That to me is a silly idea, a wall. And boy, now that I say that out loud, of course, now that's a hot issue, so I shouldn't talk about that. But you know, this idea of this wall to me is a silly idea, but you get a lot of things out of that. And when I say things, you get a lot of film and literature references. I don't know if any of you are Jean Le Carré. I gave him a French twist. You like that, Jean? It's John Le Carré novels. But The Spy Who Came In From the Cold is exactly that, is exactly jumping over that wall, right? So there's a history that I am really interested in. I get a pull from. And you all have to let me know if there's other things you want to talk about. I don't have to talk so much. You can turn on your mic and ask me questions too. Yeah, I can talk about some of those technical things. Yeah, the Reeves BFK, Rachel, that's what I use for paper. So big printing rag type of printing paper is awesome. I love it, you know. And I think is it GW, George? Is that, yeah. So I teach the Adobe Creative Suites to our students. It's a big thing. And then specifically, we have something called Toon Boom Harmony, which is a specific 2D animation software as well. So I teach that to students. Hey, Dan, go ahead and ask me, please.
Hey, I love the work, love the whole show. I'm just like curious, like as like a novice artist myself, like I always try to be like ambiguous and like weird with my work. And I was just curious, like you sharing so much about like your history and your backstory and like what your work means, like do you think that kind of takes away from the mystery of like if I just saw the show without that knowledge, like is that vulnerability something like you try to hide from the audience? Or
that's a really good question, because I think when I was your age, that is something that I wanted to do, was to be ambiguous and to just say, oh, well, it speaks for itself, right? You get it. That's really unfair, unfortunately. And I think that part of the bio has to be included as well. I don't know if that's true for every artist. I don't have that opinion, but I think for me, I think because I want to make it more accessible now to people, I think it's nice to talk about those things and to maybe reference certain things, which I'm actually trying to do with, if I said these out loud, let me see you raise it, like raise your hands. If I said pipes of peace, would anybody know what I'm talking about? Oh, no, okay. No, well, Pipes of Peace, well, maybe it's like that too, Dan, but Pipes of Peace is a 1983 studio album by Paul McCartney. All right. If I said Doors of Perception, is that a reference that anyone else would get? Doors of Perception? Aldous Huxley, an essay that he wrote in 1954, right? His journey with mescaline, peyote, right? So I'm combining these two things because there's lore around them, around these sort of ideas. Maybe not so much the Paul McCartney thing. You're like, lore around Paul McCartney's 1983 album. Well, yes, because it also happens to have a single on it called Say, 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 which was also recorded with Michael Jackson. Oh, imagine that, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, two people I already mentioned, right? So these things I'm trying to put in together. So I call mine Pipes of Perception, to sort of like reference those things, but also to get you ready to maybe think that, well, this is going to be a weird trip down some sort of journey, some sort of journey, right? And maybe maybe pop references, because I consider, Paul McCartney and James Bond are still, I think they're both part of that pop culture, that you're getting ready for that type of artwork, right? You're not going to walk up to an artwork that's flowers on a table. I'm not going to present that to you. But I think it's fair to give more to people to start a bigger conversation. And I mean, I don't know how you go into your gallery. I glance at the artwork and I immediately go to the panel. I want to know a name. I want to know a year. I might want to know biography, but I think those two things are important for me. Who made it? Maybe where it was made, and like a time. And so I'm thinking that those are important things that I try to seek out when I go to like a museum. Does that answer your question, Dan? I'm gonna throw something up on the screen for you as I also look at the chat. I collage sometimes just digitally as well before I start working on stuff. So what you're seeing, this is something I made quite a long time ago, actually, but it starts to bring things together. So I mentioned Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson earlier. Here you have Paul McCartney on the Sgt. Pepper's cover. There's an open palm, open hand above his head. And I'm seeing other references between Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney, visual references, other people's photograph, other people's artwork that I'm seeing that I can put together. I'm making a bigger story about this hand. Now I'm trying to make a composition about hands. This is Michael Jackson's handprint in the Hollywood theater, a sidewalk, right? And his signature over the top of that. It's been manipulated digitally. And so I'm sort of trying to put these things together. And this bigger image back here that sort of grayed out was an artwork that I had done and way long ago, 2011. It wasn't very good. That's why I'm not showing it in a big screen to you. But I photographed myself, in this park. Actually, Aki photographed me in this park. And I'm trying to superimpose these ideas like an open palm over my head. But I'm using this imperfect medium of this sort of black and white grainy film in the way that maybe Bigfoot would, in order to get this visual information across so that maybe it leads to a bigger idea, bigger conspiracy. This is what goes on in my head. And this is what I mean by collaging. I am constantly trying to put these things together, and I'm making new narratives, new connections. And then I just wanted to show you two others. These are photographic collages that I put. These are all photographs that I took. I've actually traveled to Japan a couple of times with Aki, and these are, as a foreigner in Japan, everything is new to me. Everything is different. I mean, it's so exciting. And I'm sure you're like that when you do travel to other places. that it's exciting to see things. So you snap a picture, oh, this is cool, this is cool. But then I'm able to later on sort of rethink things about what I'm doing in the studio. Like, well, how do these fit together? And I think that there's space involved. There's layers of cloud cover sometimes you get to see in some of these images. So that means that there's this veiling of information. It's a nighttime photograph. And that's what I also love. I love the idea in espionage that there's constantly a battle between information, misinformation, right? That's what a spy does. That's what a spy constantly does. John Le Carre does it in, I'm going to call it a boring way, but it's never boring because it's always exciting to see what a spy does in its downtime. And James Bond does it when there's no downtime. You never get to see James Bond shave. He never shaves because he doesn't have any downtime. He's always saving the world. He's constantly in action. But I love both of those ideas of what espionage can do, or intrigue, thriller, cinema, and literature can do. Yeah. So, I'm reading more of the chat here. What's your experience been in terms of getting animation into gallery settings? It's not something you often see. Oh, that's true. I think we see more of it every once in a while. I think what's interesting is that my artwork doesn't look like a mainstream animation. It's not a Saturday morning cartoon or a late night adult animation show. Instead, I hope that there's a connection to my fine art past, which is what my background is. I got a painting degree, and this is now what I sort of do with my painting degrees. I draw, right? But I consider them the same sort of thing. But I think that, so my artwork lends itself to a gallery setting. And I have been in other shows where I've done things like this too, where you show the physical artwork itself and the drawing form, and then a projection. And I think it's just as exciting. For me, it's no different from the painting. I think, like I said before, the painting, you walk up and there it is, all of it. You could to see it, beginning, middle, and end. It's just you over time digesting it as you're looking. But when you talk about the video, then I think there's, beginning, middle, and end over time. It's a longer investment than just looking at a painting. I mean, you have to be honest with yourself sometimes. How long do you really look at a painting? I think that I could probably look at a painting for 1 to 2 minutes and maybe move on if I really liked it. If I don't like it, initially I might just glance over it. So there's that with animation. If someone doesn't like it in the first 5 seconds, they probably aren't going to stay much longer. Or maybe they will. I guess it changes. So maybe it interests them. But I think that in a gallery setting, the animation is really cool. And the great thing about this talk is I get to show you everything else I wanted to show you right now on the screen, but it's a tiny screen. So I wish that you could all be there in person and see the projection, which is about 8 feet. Yeah, it's about 8.5 feet wide and about 6 feet tall. And I think that's really interesting to walk up to that and then hear the sound hit you as well. So it's a little different experience on the screen. I don't know if that answered your question, Sarah or Nick.
You're good.
Okay. Well, I've sort of shown you everything I wanted to show you. I didn't know if you had any more questions, I can answer them. But I'm so glad that I got to explain things to you. That's what I feel like. I feel like I explained things to you. Like you all came on here because you had questions. Yes.
No, you did an excellent job. And, when we first reviewed the submissions in 2019, of course, the show was supposed to happen last year. And of course, we had to postpone everything. We were just intrigued by it. And I think what it was is you had shown us 2 other, like another video, but the one that you submitted. And after that, after we all, our exhibitions committee reviewed it, we had to figure out, we want to see more. We want to see what is this about? And we're glad that we did and accepted it. So, congratulations on that. But yeah, you blew us away with it.
Wow, thanks, Nick. Thanks a lot. That means a lot. And I'm just happy that I got to share it with you. I did get to tweak it over the past year too. So I got to refine things, I should say. And I think that was really exciting, because I think it would have been a different video if it was in 2020, but in 2021, I feel like lots of things had been resolved for me in the studio.
Well, and it also opened up another avenue for us as well, because we don't show something like that, during the exhibition season. So with GW's help, actually we owe it to GW for getting that projection system up for us, that we can also offer it to more artists who work in this type of field, things that you do, that we can offer the public to come and see.
Thank you so much, everybody. If you don't have any more questions, I think, is that the end of the artist talk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's done. Yeah.
We appreciate
Thank you for,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for my family, my colleagues, my students. It was so much fun.
It was. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.